Do you have any requests being the primary audience right now? What's your mood like? Oh yeah. Um, I've got one for that actually. Yeah. I'm gonna grab some. I don't know why this has become this way, but um, I have the bear spoon as like a little, like, I don't know, uh, like a almost like a ritual thing on my desk. And so if you hear clattering around, that's the noise. Um, All right. So first one that I'm reading is going to be from this book, which is titled "On Centaurs and Other Poems" by the author Shoshana Kinshaka. Polish. I am Polish too, but I have no idea how to pronounce some of the Z names, which is on me. It's translated by Alex Brzozowski, titled Process. In the beginning was heaven and earth, black tallow and cornflower oxygen, and fawns flanking lithe deer with gods soft and white, flaxen. Cretaceous, Jurassic, Triassic, soil layers itself into tree rings, the Miocene charges by tank and majestic conquest, And there's a separation here between water and an earth of ferns and birch woods. And he sees that it is good when Genesis awakens at dawn. Nitrogen is brewing into lava, lava congeals by lacquer, mountain surmounting mountain by cosmic thundering astride. The carboniferous saturates the earth with coal stone pulp, and he sees it is good for moist amphibians and stars. Iron pulsates at its most bloody. Phosphor tightens in the tibia, and he whistles into the crater pipes with singing air. In the beginning was heaven and earth, and fawns and flaxen deer, but then the course changes. Flesh became word. When sometimes, under the fragrant angel, the robust rhododendron trembled, they squealed, cracked those puzzle grasses large and abundant, like New York. In Conine, Brest, Rouen, on the squares daisies wither, and policemen, night by night, are loving their wedded wives. Um, the reason why I was thinking of this book in particular was this author writes a lot about like pairing the awe of like how large the world is with fairly everyday moments. Um, I love their kind of play around with um, perspective and like my mind kind of has like almost like a zoom feature when I'm reading that, and it kind of goes from like outer space down to the ground and then like back in time and filtering forward. But yeah, here's another poem by the same author. In place of a pink letter, my tiny city has too many streets. I cannot meet you, though each day I count them all. My tiny city doesn't have enough streets. There is not one in it that two could meet on. My tiny city could stand over 1,000, which have sidewalks, long, long, extending, and over each there would stand millions of slim houses, like pumpkins full of wrinkled seeds, like human poultry, and each and every day different, full of your love. Could the festivity of meeting on these houses ring out on these huge houses, these colorful piano keys, and we would walk eternally, and there would be silence within us. My tiny city could stand over a short thing, one and only one, narrow like a little brook, and that street could have only two little bells, opposite joyful, laughing little houses. We could emerge some evening or morning from our homes, chuckle girls, joy birds, springtimers, and immediately meet by heart, by hand, and look into each other's eyes, eternally, eternally, lifelong. My tiny city has too few streets and too many streets, which I will never count. Um, I'll move on from her, but also, if your internet's unstable or you gotta go, like, no obligation to stay or whatever. I apologize. Very, very new endeavor for me, so I'm not really sure how this sounds or, all that good stuff, but happy to spend some time while I can. All right, this is from Reina Maria Rodriguez's The Winter Garden Photograph. She's a Cuban poet who uh, I first read maybe 4 years ago. I feel like I remember reading her distinctly when I was walking around um, the neighborhood when we lived next to the Trader Joe's at the top of the hill. But yeah, I love her very much. She's a very calming poet to me and always kind of brings back the like breath related memory of just a casual gait through during like the springtime, like April. Sometimes. Sometimes they played hide and seek, he and she hiding in turn among piles of hay and trimmed plum hedges, because he knew about horses and seeds and smelled like fruit from his thick lips down to his hooves. When he sat in front of her, abundant yellow hair always as tangled as molasses, eyes the liquid cinnamon of that tree trunk of survival. It was his eyes that death invaded, the ripeness of death with its red froth. There's no word to use for sacrificing death. Death is never on the side of the person who dies, doesn't disclose its secret in the act of killing. And then she would release those eyes that invaded death, in shadow flowing out over slime. I was 16 and I saw him coming. I embraced him as best I could. Forget all argumentation, all philosophizing about abandonment. I doubled up and bit into the tips of my fingers, sooty with sacred ash under the heat of a dazzling sun. My word, its syllable symbolizing the silence after obsession. She thinks about divinity. We're not playing games here. The assassin, time, carries my body away, and it removes abundance from imagination's country, where everything was threatened, while the harvest left its final marks in the mud. What really strikes me about her is she just kind of pulls uh, death into like everything in that like highly dramatic, poeticized way. Um, it's kind of beautiful in that like it kind of naturalizes death, grief, that whole process and turns it into like, if it's everywhere, then it doesn't strike as terribly harshly. Mm. I'm currently writing a lot about this guy. Um, Zbigniew Herbert, very inspirational to me. Um, Also Polish. I don't know why I'm going Polish themed today, uh, but I just figured I'd read something by him. This is from his collected poems, translated by. Usually, collecteds are translated by a number of people, but uh, the primary three in this work are Alyssa Valles, Czesław Milosz, and Peter Dale Scott. I would like to describe. I would like to describe that the simplest emotion, joy or sadness, but not as others do, reaching for shafts of rain or sun. I would like to describe a light which is being born in me, but I know it does not resemble any star, for it is not so bright, not so pure, and is uncertain. I would like to describe courage without dragging behind me a dusty lion, and also anxiety without shaking a glass full of water. To put it another way, I would give all metaphors in return for one word, drawn out of my breast like a rib, for one word, contained within the boundaries of my skin. But apparently, this is not possible. And just to say, I love. I run around like mad, picking up handfuls of birds, and my tenderness, which, after all, is not made of water, asks the water for a face. And anger, different from fire, borrows from it a loquacious tongue. So is blurred, so is blurred. In me, what white haired gentleman separated once and for all said, "This is the subject, and this is the object." We fall asleep with one hand under our head and with the other in a mound of planets. Our feet abandon us and taste the earth with their tiny roots, which next morning we tear out painfully. I'm catching a theme in what I'm reading so far, even if I didn't really have this uh, in my head when I was picking these out, which is most of the poems that I like or that I remember are the ones that start in a fairly straightforward or like direct sense and then move into something very ethereal, much less like strict towards a direct meaning. What I like about Herbert, especially, is that he doesn't really shy away from letting the page wander. Um, like in that particular poem, he goes through the ringer of a lot of like core emotions and then just decides, you know what, like screw this. I'm just going to move all the way out to, the cosmos and then to sleeping and then ending on the image of our feet growing tiny roots that we have to rip out of the earth every day. It's striking. It's fun. It's interesting. And it makes me wonder, what a lot of poets, these images don't just come like most things, I would argue, aren't just created. Most things have some form of inspiration. And I wonder what he looked at or what he's experienced to see, um, to think of the image of feet growing tiny roots. Gonna change up directions, and I'm going to go to uh, uh, Palestinian poet Samer Abu Hawash with Ruins and Other Poems, translated by Huda Fakhreddin. Um, the tough part is these poems are either quite long or just into kind of parts that, uh, yeah, just take some space. But I don't mind. I've got time, so I'm just gonna read through until I feel like stopping. I'm gonna start with the third section in this book, uh, called "A Bench Remembers." It is recorded, so but I'm probably going to be doing this once a week moving forward. So thank you so much for popping through, and I'll hit you up for actually hanging out pretty soon. A bench remembers. Behind the breaths neglected in the cracks, autumn slowly descends. From the cracks in another ceiling, it returns to cry without reason. Eyes dry on curtains that are no longer there, an evening weary in pictures, a small son born after a midnight that belongs to no one, an old handkerchief carefully folded by the mother and placed reverently on the pillow of a man made of sighs and regret and other invisible forms of silence. Water gush in insomnia. Soil mixed with pebbles, dry grass, and words that drift from one evening to another, from mouth to eye, on sidewalks, faded in forgetfulness. But they, the words, remain here like windows flickering in the unwavering dark. For 40 years, these prayer beads have hung like a wave on a rusty nail, on a wall crowded with clocks. The black beads are eyes without light, guarding the shadows of sleepers and those whose names have unraveled from them and scattered in the air. A breeze, but still nothing moves in the trees. A man on a bench, he too is still. A memory attempting to remember. Eyes that flow inward, unsaid words. In the dead photos, something clearly suffers. We do not see it. What difference does it make if we truly survive from one evening to another, or from a place to a wound? What difference does it make if we have not progressed for 40 years except by a touch or a speck of dust that we knew all along was here? Summer is a word, the touch, too. The rooms in the end are not walls because no matter how hard we try, we can't find a way to gather in a single word the shadows, the breaths, and the secret water that continue to flow between two wasted lives. The words that said nothing before still say nothing now. Dull voices like a night that leaves, a light touch on your face, on your shoulder, on that distant spot in your soul, a separation that happens in the moment. The images that faded are also the images that stayed. I stand alone at the end of a secret hallway where the door is not wide enough for all the silence there, where the arms are stone shadows in a moment of long farewell. A hand that forgets itself in the window becomes, in memory, a cloud. A hand becomes invisible dust on the doorknob, on the table. The image, very close against your eyes, erases itself. A soundtrack for a forgetting that forgot to be forgotten. At night, in the room of yesterday, I breathe moments from a life whose absence keeps multiplying in the air. My hand, in this darkness, tries to see. Orphans of light, we stand waiting for all that hasn't arrived, for all that never will. Meager words fall out of our pockets as we cross the days toward the tree of beginning. A house, a street, a city, a door, a window, a curtain, a hand, an eye, a heart, a wall, a touch, desolation. Word pebbles on the table, and our eyes still from afar stare back at us. This air is sharp, sharp and familiar, and for a moment it almost feels real, like a sunset in a distant house, like old couches preoccupied with their absent owners, like something that longs to be touched, like a touch longing to be something. Lost words cling to stones, fireflies without light, carve the darkness of this day, then fall like old glances falling into the emptiness of a room filled only with a chair for memory alone. And yet sometimes a lonely tree illuminates a street just as within the eye, absent shadows clamor, a mysterious glimmer throbs with something remembered. We climb words to cities submerged in waters that haven't yet arrived. We climb rooms to the words we mistake for doors. We stand for a long time before the paradox. One of us says, a door, and suddenly the air petrifies around a hand extended in the dark. One of us says morning and turns to dust on the threshold of a door that leads only to a wall. A face on a couch, a face in front of a wall, in a photograph, in a glance. Or, what is this face doing here, where there is nothing but white blindness in bedrooms inhabited by desolation or dampness or silence? Or, a bewildered face in front of a window as the trees pass by, remains in confusion, asking for no explanation because a single glance is enough to summarize a life. That was too much, or never was. Something doesn't arrive. Many words lose their light before they are born. The images are an ache nestled in a defunct head, like a life seen from the window of a train passing through this deserted room. A man without a window, without a sky, a man with a cigarette on a bench in front of the sea. He shifts a little. A curtain rustles in another life. So, I mean, I think it's impossible for any Palestinian poet writing to have language that isn't influenced by the fact that their country and people have been genocided for pretty much their entire lives, that the Nakba has been 79 years ongoing. It's not uncommon to read Palestinian poets who uh, are writing effectively lines that detail the absolute destruction of their homes, their family, their culture. I mean, recent reports have shown just that. I think there have been out of like there are 2,700 entire bloodlines that have been killed off entirely just since the most recent uh, bombing campaign by Israel. Um, And I think this poem, this long poem, I mean, it's literally titled Ruins, is obviously speaking to that. Um, However, something that I love about translation specifically is that it allows for images that surprise so much more frequently, more regularly than uh, a writing in like a strict like mind to paper writing in your preferred language. What I mean by that is, uh, I think when you are trying to verbalize a language from your own brain through your own language, it's very difficult to not filter what you say. Even if you are trying to do as much like stream of consciousness, whatever kind of uh, interesting components that there are, it's very, very difficult to write something truly incoherent to yourself. When I was reading this poem the first time, I got to the image of at the end of a secret hallway where the door is not wide enough for all the silence there, where the arms are stone shadows in a moment of long farewell. Um, I was just so struck by the idea of a door that isn't wide enough for silence. Uh, it's such an evocative image to me, and I think something that uh, really I haven't read before, I haven't experienced before, I haven't thought of that image of the physical dimensions and limits of a threshold versus silence. Um, but I love this book very much. Again, it's Samer Abu Hawash, Ruins and Other Poems, translated by Huda Fakhruddin. Uh, What next? I'll read a few ones that I've only uh, read recently, and so I'm just kind of getting through it. And again, I apologize in advance for anyone in the future who's watching this and seeing me butcher the names live because I didn't prepare looking up pronunciations. And especially sorry for if, by God, any of these individuals actually see me mispronouncing their name to hell and back. This is an Icelandic poet who, please God, uh, Brynja Hjelmsdottir? Sorry. Translated by Rachel Britton. The title of the book is A Woman Looks Over Her Shoulder. I'm just going to read a few kind of samples, uh, and I'll start at the beginning. The creature twists the knob. It's locked. She is denied entry. The choir glides through, the gate sings. Regrettably, you weren't chosen. The task wasn't easy. There were many applicants. The task wasn't easy. Nevertheless, the administration has come to a decision. Regrettably, you weren't chosen. We wish you success. We encourage you to reapply. We wish you success and hereby inform you that regrettably, you weren't chosen. She peeks through the keyhole, sees the fantasist. The fantasist who fantasizes about being a man says, well, 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 yes, 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 well, 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 yes. Fantasizes about being a man among men who validate one another. Yes, they are so valid and validated. Oh, and he tries to stifle the lustful moans at birth, moans that burst forth at the thought of a tight, firm handshake, of immortality as a statue, of placing his will in the heart of anyone who sees his face on the side of a bus. At the thought of sitting on a sofa on a set of a live broadcast, a confident, resolute, serious man saying, good evening, saying, wow, what a great question. He fantasizes of being steadfast, strict, merciful, like God, like steam that surges from a white chimney full of unstable reactive matter that erupts, so the wreckage flutters over the whole town, the whole fjord. Nothing rises from the ash, everything dies in fire. And the fantasist doesn't care at all. God is real, and he doesn't care that people on earth suffer every day. And did not God create man in his own image? Through the keyhole, the fantasist is seen transformed into a stuffed little god, strolling about and shaking hands while he swells with vomit that spews out through every hole, echoing, well, well, well. Yes, yes, yes. Well, 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 yes. The creature closes the eye. She's pressed to the hole. From the other, she sees nothing save a cold wall. Um, I really like what a baller way to start a book. First of all, I don't know if this is like a selected edition and arranged in this way, or if it just sincerely the author just decided to start off by roasting the hell out of over serious men and uh, also making your first two words the creature is just, I think, really powerful and impactful to me as a lover of creatures. Um, but I think more people need to write poems like that where they just analyze all of the like trivial, mundane ways in which men have too much confidence in their everyday lives. Uh, So thanks from Iceland. We're gonna skip to now a Malaysian poet. This is Tell Me Kenyang by Kule Grassi, translated by Pauline Fan. Or Fawn, probably Fawn. Again, next time I do this, I'm going to actually look up names of people before I'm reading them live. I apologize so profusely. I only finished reading this book very recently. Most of the poems are fairly short, you know, half pages. But it was really striking to me. This particular work has been really, the author is very adamant on inventing and transcribing a type of like ritual form, which I thought was really interesting. It's also very adamant in detailing language, specifically like language influences, because it seems like there are several different types of languages being uh, like you can't really see this, but um, Iban, Kayan, Kelabit, Malay, Kenyan, uh, Bidayu, like it seems very centered in this idea of mesh and interweaving, both from a linguistic perspective and from the actual poems themselves. Just trying to figure out what I want to read. And Shirai falling in Narita. Every pothole in the street's curve hides a dew stain you found at every departure gate. The flicker of constellations you see from a metropolis high rise reminds you of Insurai flowers falling onto Parabong. You grasp at my heart as if it were a talisman, frightened breath flying, plunging to the sea. The lines of your narrative smell of rice wine. It's just the distance of our eyes when the soju you gaze at stands erect on the table. The night is clear at other airports. It's not yet sakura season. We watch Insurai falling in Narita. A lot of these poems, I mean, I think the activating like image and mechanism of that poem that I just read is it's not yet sakura season. But a lot of these poems really come back to, in this book particularly, come back to a sense of placing meaning in the amalgamation of different like cultural representations or different ideas of, what holds impactful meaning around them. And I think that's really interesting how, like, this is a translation of a work, but even the original work itself is sort of like a translation and transfiguration of a bunch of different, icons and iconography from different cultures. And then, even beyond that, the original work is this transfiguration of all of these different languages into one, singular page. Uh, it's just a really like brilliant endeavor, and I'll be certainly recommending this for quite a while. Tell me, Kenyalang. I think probably just two more from me. Um, because I'm running out of breath. It's hard work reading poems, you know? This is a book called Walking the Earth by Amina Saeed, translated by Peter Thompson. Most of the poems in this book are not like titled. There's very little actual like split between the poems, in fact. Um, so I think what I will do is I'm just going to start and end where it feels right. I hold still in limbo, questioning all of life. Passerby of this earth, you can inhabit only what gazes at sky. In the great body of the world, I open the living way that leads to other worlds. I hold still in limbo. You who come from shadow will be prey to the shadow. You who love light, your luminous double will reach the sun, the circle of all things. Spaces that lack the winds' raving, our shadows contemplate their unfinished state. On a slab of black marble, they rest their bare hands. I live only through my care for light, one of them says. And as it's getting late this night, let us not take on bodies before dawn, the devourer of stars. Already the bird inflames the pure wings of the sky. Flint under eyelids, limits submerged, the eye's opacity, all the world's light at its first motion, and the surfeit of light obscures the sky. Behind the heavy smoke, as many blurred ships who have lost the shore, condemned to the sands, the chapped mouth arrives at a cry. A single stone might inflame the light. Shameless game of shadows, everywhere the void up to the blinding sun, black the dominant color. Bearing secret things, our shadows approach the reflection of their own reflection. Wounded, agitated with funereal passions, at their temples they wipe eternal blood. Here begins the very hesitation that obliges them to live. Uh, I also don't have fantastic explanations for um, why I read poems in different paces, other than like sometimes it just seems like it calls for a faster read or a louder or more emphatic. That particular book, it's so like whirlwind esque. There's so much. I mean, even in what I read, there's so much imagery around the wind inflamed. That it makes me want to intrinsically read it faster and with more, drama to it. But I don't have a hard theory for these things. I liked the book fine. Um, I don't have a lot of tremendously great or deep thoughts on it other than uh, sometimes you read a book and you read it all in, one like hour setting and it strikes you and you just kind of have to wait and let it finish striking you before you can come to those terms. I think the last poem I'll read here, um, yeah, I think the last poem I'll read here is called or from a book called The Slaughterhouse of Dreams. This is by uh, Fiston Mwanza Mujila and subtitled Kasala for My Kaku. Uh, the really cool, so this is translated by J. Brett Maney from the French. Mujila, if I remember correctly, is yeah, from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, um, and is pretty adamant about. using Kasala as this sort of like meditative form representative of uh, like their own invention and pushing kind of language into that kind of metaphysical spiritual space. Um, a lot of this book uses language that I'm not familiar with, and though I look it up, and there is something of a glossary in the end. There's plenty of notes and all that. Um, I also like reading it not knowing. Uh, I like to read things without really craving them to tell me what it is they mean in every single line, and just reading the language and seeing if I can't catch the vibe otherwise. This is, I believe, the last one of the last poems of the book. It's titled "The City Within." Don't say I've lost my cabeza. I'm not to blame. Blame the city that rumbles in my belly and saddles me with seizures every time I mention it. My inner city is a squatter's city, a contraband city, a forbidden city, a humongous slum, derelict yet self assured. Everyone is welcome here, no visas or vaccination cards required. And in my city, the racists, nativists, and cutthroats of the full moon are sent packing. They defenestrate themselves into the sea if they aren't inclined to put up with our laughter and smells, our powered parties and yen for freedom, our bebop and rumba. A world without skylights is a dim utopia, and we know where utopias tend when they float. Last minute heresies and hoaxes. Don't say I've lost my cabeza. My inner city is a happy city. My inner city is a cosmopolitan city. My inner city is a crossroads of civilizations. My inner city sits between East and West, the African tropics and Central Europe, Latin America and South Sudan, Bolivia and Afghanistan. Long thoroughfares connect every neighborhood of the city, my city. Por favor, don't say I've lost my cabeza. Don't say it even to Mvidi Mikulu, the elder spirit. My inner city is the most populous in the world, but also the most carnal and brotherly. People lay the table and eat outdoors under the noonday sun. They roll in laughter. In my city, the doors and windows of the apartments are open wide all year long to the traveler, passerby, and chance caller. The seasons clot in a mad desire for redemption. Wet summers, mild winters. Don't say I've lost my cabeza. My inner city is a port city. It dips its feet and hair in the water. Thousands of berths and embarkations take place all over my city, bringing salt, apples, cherries, silk, rugs, rum, juju, juice, shells, rice wine, as well as humans in all shapes and sizes, expressing themselves in various languages unknown even to them. On each face, a genealogy etched by years of migration and seasonal travels. Don't say I've lost my cabeza or that it's only tooth decay that loosens my tongue. My inner city, the city of Mwanza Mujila, is a conglomerate of dreams, and some of these dreams are green, sumptuous, thunderous. My city is a veranda, an enormous bazaar, a fair, a baffling jukebox, an open air bar, a marvelous bordello. Here we play and make swing every kind of music and dance. Tango, polka, pique, candombe, the waltz, samba, kinzomba, and nonstop jazz when you pace the alleyways of my city, of my inner city. If you don't hear Mingus on bass, Mongezi Feza on trumpet, Max Roach on drums, Dudu Pukwana on sax, Duke Ellington on piano, it's because the vibratos of Bessie Smith pulse in your ears, a feverish voice singing crazy love, a cappella between the Angelus and the Muezzin's call to prayer. Shh. Don't say I've lost my cabeza. Three emancipated rivers flow through my city, the Yangtze, the Danube, and the Limpopo. My city is fragrant with daffodils, the scents and spices of Zanzibar. My inner city is a city of hope. My inner city is not a citadel. My inner city is not a prison. My inner city begins in Graz and ends in Port Elizabeth, passing through Caracas, Nagoya, Thessaloniki, Odessa, and Seattle. In my inner city, I am not some guy from the Congo or Zimbabwe. In my inner city, I am not a man. I am not a woman. I am not a foreigner in my inner city. I am not, uh, sorry, in my inner city, I am not a white, a black. I am just the grandson of my paternal grandmother, Julianne Wa Mwanza. So I like that poem quite a lot because it really just does take to task the question of, you know, define what your inner being looks like and really go in on that, mind palace, the homes that you have up there, what you imagine when you close your eyes. Um, but yeah, thanks so much for hanging out. I believe that will be all for me today. I am parched. Thank you so much. And this will be a recording. So if you're watching this in the future, cool. Hi. Bye.